Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 909B, and today's date is March 3rd, 2016, and the title of the episode is U.S. Gives the Green Light in the Middle East. Plans are in motion. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, Obamacare is getting worse and worse as time goes on. I mean, the benefit to the people does not exist. We talked about premiums going higher. We talked about penalties on Obamacare. And now we're seeing deductibles. Now, a deductible is something you have to pay first before you get any benefit from the insurance. A lot of these plans have $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 deductibles. And according to Freedom Partners, a Virginia-based conservative nonprofit group, it says 41 states are facing higher deductibles in 2016, 17 of which saw a double-digit hike. Now, some of the states are Mississippi at 39%, Washington 31%, South Carolina 26%, Arizona 21%, North Carolina 20%. And we can see that, on average, the deductibles for bronze, silver, and gold plans, they increased by $265. And what this means, it means that the health insurance companies, they're not going to pay out any benefits. It all comes out of your pocket once again. And we can see at this point that you'll be paying the $500, $800, $1,100, $1,500 premium, and then you'll be paying the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 deductible, depending on your plan. So after all those payments, what do you get? Absolutely nothing. All you get is empty pockets. That's it. Now, yesterday we talked about the FBI and John McAfee and how he said he was going to unlock the iPhone. It's that simple. Well, he proved it. He took the phone, took it apart, used the assembler, and he was able to log into the phone. He completely unlocked it in 30 minutes. And he's waiting for the FBI to give him a call so he can show them how to do it. So all of what we're seeing right now out in the corporate media and the FBI telling us that, they need access, they need this. No, they don't need any of this. Actually, they don't even want to look at the phone. Remember, that phone they're trying to get into is the business phone. There's nothing on there. They changed the password on the cloud on purpose to create this problem, to create what we're seeing here, to get the people of America to agree with them where they can spy on you. That's what they're doing at this point. Now, something very interesting with the FBI. The FBI has joined forces with the National Science Foundation, and they invested $1 million into this new project. So they're going to create this new project. They're going to gather information on people who share anti-government internet memes online. Those sites, like myself and many others, who talk anti-government, they're going to be collecting data on these people. If you're blogging or you're commenting, your information will be collected if you're speaking out against the government. The goals of the project, according to the FBI, is aimed at modeling the diffusion of information online and empirically discriminating among models and mechanisms driving the spread of memes. We will create web services open to the public for monitoring trends, bursts, and suspicious memes. This service could mitigate the diffusion of false and misleading ideas, detect hate speech, subversive propaganda, and assist in the preservation of open debate. So to do all this, they'll use a system called Truthy, which will comprise of a group that will track and differentiate memes made by online users with particular focus on those who are political activists. Their goal is to eliminate false and misleading political information from social media. Now, how are they going to eliminate this? Are they just going to remove it? Are they going to counter the argument? We don't know this yet. But first, they're compiling all this information. And we know in other countries, any group or anyone speaking out against the government, they're information is just deleted, never to be seen again. Now, this database is going to be shared with the Department of Homeland Security and other agencies, so they can help and track down all of these people. So basically what they're doing at this point is they're looking for those groups, those people who don't agree with the government. Isn't this what governments do when the entire system is falling apart and you're at the end game? They turn into one gigantic dictatorship. They shut free press down. They shut free speech down. They shut down anyone speaking out against the government. And they basically get rid of them, or they put them in jail. This is exactly what we're seeing right now. Now, the police, they are now voicing their concerns about domestic drones. We know that you have to register your drone. They don't want drones flying around. They're very nervous about this. They don't want drones in the hands of people, because then you can see what's happening. You can coordinate things when the entire system breaks down. The police right now, they want to weaponize the drones in the future. In 2015, North Dakota passed a law granting police the right to arm drones with less than lethal weaponry. And that would be basically rubber bullets, pepper spray, tear gas, sound cannons, tasers. And eventually you know what happens after that. Those are removed, and weaponry that have bullets, they are placed on the drones. And this is where we are headed at this point, because this system right now, as we discussed, is accelerating, falling apart. It's not going to improve anytime soon. And as we go throughout this spring, summer, and fall, everything is going to accelerate. And it's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. And they know this. They realize what's happening. This is why they've made preparations. This is why you see other countries implementing these draconian laws, putting more and more armed people, armed forces on the streets. They're getting ready for what is coming. Now, out in Japan, we know the U.S. has been trying to get into Okinawa to set up this new advanced base system. We see the chief of the U.S. Marine Corps says the project right now is a little bit behind schedule, and we really don't care what the people in Okinawa say. We're moving into the base. That's basically their attitude right now, and right now they need the base set up. So they're pushing forward because they realize that things are starting to break down, and there's no more time to argue with anyone. They just need to do it. Now, we know the U.S. placed sanctions on North Korea. Allegedly, North Korea launched 6 short-range missiles in the direction of the Sea of Japan. They were launched, and basically they covered a distance of about 100 to 150 kilometers, and they fell in the water, and that was it. Now, just a week ago, didn't the U.S. launch 2 ballistic missiles that fell into the ocean? But they're making a very big deal about this, because this could have just been a test that they were doing, and it was scheduled anyhow. But this didn't prove anything, but they're making it a very big deal because their whole intention right now is to provoke North Korea. And everything that they do at this point, they need everyone to look at it as, oh, they're coming to get us. And that's what they're doing. We see out in Ukraine, everything is starting to break down at this point. The Ukrainian government is saying that the southeastern people are using Grad missile launchers. They're hitting their troops. And the battles in these areas are accelerating. They've also said that basically the Minsk agreement is dead. It's not working. And they're saying since the Minsk agreement was put into place, things have been getting worse. No one's abiding by it now, and they're not even going to follow it. So what does Ukraine do? Well, the Ukraine banned government officials from publicly criticizing the work of state institutions and their colleagues. What it means is that criticism of any government entity in which mass corruption takes place by fellow public workers is now a crime. Of course, people are criticizing this, saying, well, wait a minute. What happened to free speech? This is not giving people free speech. This is taking away their free speech. So we can see right now that Ukraine, Turkey, France, Spain, US, they're all doing the same exact, UK, Canada, Australia, they're all doing the same thing. They're getting rid of those people that are going to speak out. They're making it a crime. They're making it illegal to talk about other countries. Like in Canada, you can't talk about Israel. So what we're seeing right now is this entire thing is breaking down. They're getting ready for the entire system to fall apart. Ukraine is building up for a major offensive, and we're heading into war. That's where all this is heading. Now, Obama came out and he upped the ante in Ukraine against Russia in Syria. He extended the sanctions till 2017 because of the involvement of Russia in the Ukrainian conflict. Now, we know it was a coup d'etat. We know the United States and Victoria Nuland, who was the lead operator in this whole thing, overthrew the elected government and put in a puppet government. So Obama says the existing measures will stay in place because Russia's actions continue to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. They couldn't be any clearer about their intentions against Russia. They are provoking and pushing Russia. Now, a couple of reports ago, we talked about the B-52 Stratofortress bombers that they moved from U.S. to Europe, and they are to participate in a military exercise in Norway. Well, a top U.S. commander characterized the redeployment as not normal. This is something that we normally wouldn't do, and we know why these are out there. This is for the upcoming war. They're moving military assets into position. And they're moving it into position in the Eastern Europe area. We know they're encircling China in the Pacific. And in the Middle East, we know they're getting prepared for a major offensive. We're getting word that U.S. has delivered Black Hawk helicopters to Jordan to guard the border. Now, think about this. We have Lebanon, which borders Syria on the west side of Syria. We have Jordan on the east side of Syria because it's like a V at the bottom and leads into Israel. So we have Black Hawk helicopters, which were delivered, 8 of them, the UH-60A Black Hawk helicopters to Jordan. We know Lebanon is being evacuated of all diplomats. We know troops are in Tunisia from the UK on the border there. And we know there are special op teams in Libya. And very interestingly, the Saudi foreign minister, accompanied by the Saudi intelligence chief, they made a visit to Israel during the past few days. And the reports indicate that the visit was meant to discuss a joint Israeli-Saudi military operation against Syria and Lebanon. Most likely Israel will stay back, fly in a little bit, bomb, and then that's it, and they'll let everyone else do the hard work. So, high-ranking Israeli regime officials also visited Saudi Arabia in the last few weeks. So, something at this point, from the indicators that we're seeing, something is about to happen, and it's going to happen big. We see a lot of military assets being moved into different situations. We see a lot of talks going on. We see a ship, a Turkish ship. It was stopped by the Greek Coast Guards, and they were carrying weapons to Lebanon. They had 6 containers on the ship. 2 of them had weapons and ammunition. We can see we are headed down this path to war here. They're preparing everything in the Middle East. The Middle East is going to light up. They have no alternative at this point. The entire system that we've talked about is accelerating, collapsing. They're running out of time. Time is short right now. And it looks like they got the green light because we're already seeing the U.S. pushing the propaganda and going after Russia and Syria during the ceasefire negotiations. It's just absolutely ridiculous because we know their true agenda. Their true agenda is not a ceasefire. It's not peace. The U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, they've passed a resolution accusing the Syrian government, Russia, and Iran, players are always the same, of war crimes and calling for an international tribunal on Syria. Very interesting during a time of peace and ceasefire. And they're saying they need to look at the massacre of civilians, chemical weapons, cluster munitions, and barrel bombs. Wow, everything the U.S. has been doing, everything the Islamic State, which is the proxy army for the United States government, central bankers, they have been doing, everything the rebels have been doing. This has been proven time and time again that it was not the Assad forces, it was not the Russian forces, it was the rebel forces, it was the terrorist forces, which is the proxy army for the U.S., and they're trying to convince the world that it was Russia, Syria, and Iran. Why would they do this to their own people? It makes no sense. Actually, as they're liberating more cities and towns, people are saying it was a complete nightmare living under the rebel leaders and the terrorist groups. Now, NATO commander is taking this a step further, saying that Russia and Assad, they're bombing their people in Syria. Why would they do this? It's like George Washington here in the United States, when he was fighting the British, he decided that he was going to basically shoot and kill his own people. It makes no sense. Why in the world would you do that? You want the people's support. It makes no sense. This is why the people voted for him back in 2014. So they're saying that Russia and Assad are bombing civilians, and they're weaponizing the Syrian citizens by making them refugees. They're the cause of all the refugees. You mean it wasn't the Islamic State, it wasn't Al-Qaeda, it wasn't Al-Nusra, it wasn't all the funding of the moderate rebels, which are really the terrorist groups, going back to 2011. It wasn't the U.S. and NATO that went into Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen. This didn't cause any of the refugee problems. No, it couldn't be. This is how you know it's propaganda. Now, Russia, they have brought in submarines all into the Mediterranean. And these submarines are very, very quiet. They call it a black hole. They can't be detected. And we're getting reports that they have their subs around the Mediterranean, just off the coast of Syria and Lebanon. And there are other countries out there with subs, like the United States, England, Germany, France, and Israel. But Russia brought these in because they understand what is happening at this point. They know that the coalition forces, they are planning something very large. Now, very interestingly today, the power went out in Syria. It was a complete blackout. And electricity was cut all across the provinces, and teams were trying to determine why this happened. Now, we know there are special op teams in Syria. We also know that the U.S. Defense Department, they announced plans to use cyber warfare as part of their ongoing operations against the Islamic State. Now, of course, that's a cover story. They're really not using it against the Islamic State because it is their proxy army. So they're telling you they're using cyber warfare, but who are they using it on? Most likely, it's Syria. So the lights went out in Syria, and it looks like the U.S. was sabotaging the power grid. And normally when the lights go out in Syria, the next couple of days, something happens. Plans are put into motion. Assets are moved into place. This is done on purpose. And we can see at this point, from the buildup of everything that we've been seeing with the U.S. amphibious warships in the Mediterranean, with weapons being smuggled into Lebanon, with Jordan receiving 8 of the Black Hawk helicopters, troops in Tunisia. It's all starting to fit together, and now we have this mysterious blackout. And most likely it was a combination of the special forces and some type of cyber attack, because this was huge. And we know the U.S. has the capability to do this. So going forward right now, everything is going to get ramped up. Everything is going to accelerate. The collapse of the system, war, events, false flags. Because the U.S. has no alternative. Things are deteriorating very, very quickly. Things are falling apart. They need to get everyone looking at someplace else. And at this point, if you have not started, you need to start. If you don't believe, that's fine. That's your choice. But just look at the indicators that I talked about in my financial report, about gold, about the stock market, about all the real economic indicators. Look for the trends. Is gold continually rising, even though they're suppressing it? Is it happening more often? Is the stock market collapsing more often, going lower and lower? Are the real economic indicators getting worse, going to the 2008 or bypassing the 2008 crisis indicators? All of this will tell you. Remember, we have many sunny days before the one storm hits. And once the storm hits, everyone forgets about those sunny days. And we're heading down that path. And everyone at this point needs to make sure you're ready to deal with what is coming. Because we're going to see riots. We're going to see the shelves emptied. We're going to see the dollar basically fall in value, which means things are going to become very expensive. We're going to see mass layoffs in companies. And this is not going to just be here in the U.S. It's going to be all over. The private Western Central Bank countries are all going to feel it. We're going to see false flag events. We're going to see war. And we're going to see this very soon. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.